hearing the term self-care more lately, whether it's in mainstream media, on blogs, people talking about it on Instagram, and that makes me really happy. Unfortunately, the context in which I'm hearing it is off to me, in my opinion, and it makes my soul cringe a little bit. There are a couple of reasons for that. But ultimately, I want to talk today about what I think self-care actually is and the different times that I utilize it in different ways. Now, this topic of self-care is extremely important to me. If you've been watching me over the years, then you know that I have struggled with mental illness and eating disorder. And self-care was one of the most important steps in recovery that I ever took. All self-care really is taking care of yourself. It's in the name. But unfortunately, what I have been hearing, especially lately, is self-care being used as an excuse to indulge. It kind of upsets me when I see it in commercials. When people are trying to sell you something that will help you take care of yourself, when in reality, self-care measures are used to help you survive. They are needs. They are sometimes emergency needs. And buying something that a commercial on TV is going to sell you is probably not actually self-care. So the ultimate goal of self-care is literally just to keep yourself operating at your best, functioning at your best. In my opinion, there are two different types of self-care, or categories, if you will. The first is preemptive self-care, and that's what you're going to do every day. The things that are non-negotiables, they need to happen regardless of what's going on in order to keep you operating at your best and to be the kindest to yourself and to others. And then there is in-the-moment self-care. This happens when we either haven't taken care of ourselves, done the preemptive self-care, or if just outside circumstances have made it so our life feels out of control. Maybe we're in relational issues, we're in an argument, or things go wrong consistently and we find ourselves just feeling very out of control and find ourselves getting upset or angry or extremely sad or depressed or anxious, whatever it may be. In the moment self-care is what we would do, or what I would do, when I need like an emergency dose of self-care. I really like to look at my self-care routines this way because I can identify in the morning, generally when I am doing preemptive self-care, that I am just doing the baseline I need to do to function well. I'm filling up my tank of emotional resource as close to 100 as I can when I'm doing preemptive self-care. And that tank gets depleted throughout the day, but I am doing my best and I've taken care of myself first, so I'm able to give and give and give. Differentiating that from in the moment self-care, I'm able to admit that I am in a difficult place, and just being able to admit that to myself makes me feel a lot better. So this is what I do in those two different times that I utilize self-care. For preemptive self-care, the very first thing I prioritize is my sleep. I need a solid 8 hours of sleep every night. I have been prioritizing this for several years now. Of course, as I gave birth and had young babies, I couldn't always get to that point, but I mean, every new parent has to deal with that. But my kids have been sleeping through the night for a very long time, and it is within my control to get 8 hours of sleep every single night. I do not neglect my sleeping habits. I need to get that sleep if it is within my ability to do so, and that's way up there on the priority of self-care routines I do. The second one is the food that I eat. Now, I am making a much more detailed video, probably will be posted next week, on my issues surrounding food and how I was able to overcome binge eating disorder and walk in recovery for an extended period of time. But the summary of what I will say now is that my relationship with food is extremely important, and having a balanced relationship with food is extremely important for me. I know many people watching this don't struggle with food, and so this isn't as much of a priority for them. I do intermittent fasting, which I've shared about on this channel before, so I won't go into detail about that. But then also, I just do my absolute best not to have judgment around food and my relationship with it. I don't talk about bad food or even unhealthy food almost ever, because I don't think there is such a thing. I think that I know what macronutrients and micronutrients my body needs and what a body operates at in an optimal way. And I keep treats, you know, they're an exciting thing to have every now and then, and I'm fine with that. I don't shame myself for eating unhealthy foods. I have treats occasionally and I enjoy them very much. I am okay with wanting them when I want them. And all the other times that I'm not necessarily eating treats, I feed my body lots of vegetables and protein, and I eat at specific times, generally when I'm hungry. When I'm not hungry, I don't eat. Like I said, I'll go into far more detail about my eating habits in a different video and the mindsets behind it, which is more specific. But the ultimate takeaway is preemptively in my self-care routines, I do my intermittent fasting, and then I eat when I'm hungry and I don't when I'm not. Alone time is a huge part of my self-care routine that I know is not necessarily a part of other people's self-care routines. I have to get alone time and I have to get it every single day. If I neglect that, that is actually the fastest way for me to notice that I am leaning toward behaviors that don't benefit me or anybody else positively. I haven't had the compulsion to eat in a binging manner in almost 4 years, but I have felt my anxiety get to a place where I notice I am starting to get interested in that compulsion. So alone time is a huge preemptive step in self-care that I take every day. A newer part of my self-care routine that I've only recently realized is super important for me is creating. I never really thought of myself as being a creative person. I used to like drawing as a kid. I would occasionally make things. I feel like I had a little bit of an engineering mind. I liked to take my toys apart if they were broken and figure out how to put them back together. But eventually someone told me that my drawing wasn't pretty and that I wasn't a good painter, and so I quit, and then I just never really got crafty or creative. But in the last few years, especially designing furniture for our home, I've really realized how good it feels to me to create something that I'm proud of. And I make sure that that is not put off as something that I can reward myself with after I've done something else I think is important. I have to create on a almost daily basis. I have to make things that I'm proud of. The fun thing is, I've realized it doesn't have to be a piece of furniture that I should create every day. I like to pack meals for my daughter to take to school rather than her buying the school lunches. And just the act of making her meal pretty in like a bento box is really fun to me. And that nurtures a place in my soul that nothing else does quite like being creative and making something that I am proud of. And then mindfulness meditation is the last preemptive self-care routine that I'll mention for now that I do on a daily basis. It doesn't look the same as it did when I did it in season 2 of Carrie Simple videos. I just throughout the day practice breathing in and breathing out for a couple of minutes at a time and kind of noting that I'm sitting down. Breathing in and breathing out. I don't sit like that. You can't tell how I'm sitting, it doesn't matter. But I breathe in and I breathe out. I consciously make note of the seat that my butt is sitting on and the floor that my feet are on. I consciously note how it feels for my palms to touch my legs. And just breathe in and breathe out. And then when thoughts come, I note that I am thinking. And that's it. That's all my mindfulness meditation is. I like to do it for 5 to 10 minutes at a time. And I generally do it every day, although it happens sporadically throughout the day. It's just a really good way for me to be grounded, especially in seasons when I'm feeling more anxious. It calms me down. The act of breathing calms me down. And then just thinking about thinking. It is amazing how much that does for your everyday life. We don't think about thinking very often. And I'm just watching thoughts come and go, and they come and go. Sometimes they're thoughts of anger, sometimes they're thoughts of excitement, sometimes they're thoughts of boredom, and just actually sitting down in place and being present and watching those thoughts come and go is really freeing. Because when I am not meditating and I get angry or upset or excited or whatever, I am more aware that those feelings are going to come and they're going to go regardless of how I handle them. And it's been pretty friggin' awesome for my emotional stability just to practice that kind of preemptive self-care. Now, there are times when I have been doing my best to take care of myself through my preemptive self-care routines, but things still happen, and that's life. Things just get tough, and I have to do some in-the-moment self-care. So this is what I do. If I am out and about, outside of my home, and I start to feel really anxious or upset or just anything that's really uncomfortable, that is usually a really good indicator that my body is telling me that it's done, that my resources are run out and it's time to get the self home. And that's what I do. If I can help it, I do my best to honor my body telling me that it's time to get the hell out. I think that I have a pretty good grasp of my limits, and I usually don't commit to social engagements that are going to be really long or take me beyond what I am comfortable doing. Keep in mind, this is all just hanging out with people. The social anxiety flares up a lot and at random times. But by honoring my internal self, by getting myself home when I am just overwhelmed, it makes a world of difference in how I am feeling. And it's definitely an in-the-moment self-care routine. Another thing that I've gotten really good at is identifying what I'm struggling against. I feel like so much stress or discomfort in life is simply just a struggle, some sort of struggle. Something's not happening that we want to happen, or something's happening that we don't want to happen. And a lot of the time the struggle isn't that obvious. I mean, it could be a relational thing that we haven't really identified, or it could be even something completely unrelated to what we initially think of at first. But if I can identify where I am struggling and accept it, accept that I'm feeling that way, that I'm struggling against it, it helps me kind of ride out the wave. And I'm gonna give you a story because this is such a super vague example. Just yesterday, it was the morning I'd taken a shower, I looked in the mirror and I just didn't feel good about my reflection. I didn't have any makeup on, I was just wearing a robe, and I just like grabbed my neck like this and just looked at myself, and I was sad. And I don't really have a good reason why I felt that way, but I felt it. I was just not feeling great about the girl I was looking at in the mirror. So I just took a deep breath, and I recognized I was discouraged, that I didn't want to look the way I looked at that moment. But I paid attention to that, and my internal dialogue was not what it has been in the past, which is you're ugly, or you have red splotchy spots on your face and I wish that you didn't, or your eyes are too small, or your nose is too big. I didn't go there. I just acknowledged that I was disappointed. I didn't try to fight against the disappointment. And then I went and put moisturizer on my face, and I pulled my hair back and spent 30 seconds giving it a little bit of volume, and I felt better. Now, the self-care act was not the moisturizer on the face or doing the hair. It was accepting that I felt that way, not trying to invalidate my own feelings, but just accepting that they were there and being compassionate toward myself in those feelings. Sometimes things suck. Sometimes I don't like my reflection. Sometimes I don't like the number on the scale. Sometimes I don't like how I'm being treated. But I can't always change those things right away. And trying to convince myself that they don't exist is a lot like trying to invalidate what I'm feeling. And invalidation doesn't work for me. That is what sends me into binges. So I just accept what I'm feeling and do my best to take care of myself anyway. And it has a way of making those uncomfortable feelings just kind of fall away, like a wave in the sea or a cloud passing by. It comes and it goes, and because I'm not trying to struggle with it, it doesn't just stay and linger. I've heard the phrase, what you resist persists, and this is a perfect case of that. By accepting that it's there and still taking care of myself and making room for those not so comfortable feelings, I get by just fine. And the third thing that I do when I need some emergency in the moment self-care is I go for little wins. If I can handle it, if it is within my resources, I go and either finish a project or do some sort of self-improvement activity that's really little, takes very little time, but I feel like I've accomplished something. That could be taking a shower if I'm not feeling wonderful, or doing my makeup, or I live in a fixer-upper, so it could be finishing a teeny tiny project that might only take 20 minutes, but will move my home closer to a place of completion. I am a pro at getting little wins under my belt when I'm not feeling great, and after I've done some of the other awareness activities and getting myself alone and kind of taking a deep breath. The little wins almost move me into a place of momentum where I don't just sit and have the ability to kind of stew and fall into a bit of a depression. That still happens. But if I can get a little win, it moves me toward emotionally standing up straighter and getting a little bit more done. I don't have to have a smile on my face. I'm not an overwhelmingly happy person by nature, but if I can keep myself from falling into a depression, just by getting a few little wins under my belt, it makes a huge difference in how I'm able to operate at a grand scale and over the long term. Now, as you all have heard, I struggle with depression and anxiety. I've got social anxiety that I deal with. There are a lot of neurological things that I think are a little bit different in me than there are in many people in the world. However, I know for a fact that many of the people that have followed me on this platform also experience life that way, just a little bit differently. I have a therapist. I'm currently seeking out a psychiatrist to explore some of the things that are going on with me neurologically, but I do hope that as I've talked about these self-care routines, you've gotten a better idea of what self-care actually is, or maybe you've gotten an idea of ones that could help you in the future as well. I'm actually fairly certain that I've probably missed a few other self-care routines that I have done on a regular basis. Ooh, I already know, taking a hot bath. Ooh, that one does great things for my soul, for in-the-moment self-care. I would put that under getting alone, if I can though, because I'm taking a bath by myself. Are you kidding me? No one's joining me in the bathroom when I need emergency self-care. Let me know in the comments what some of your self-care routines are and tell us why. It's always really interesting to hear the why behind the what. It just helps me grasp how I operate, and I know that sharing that with others is going to help them as well. Thank you all for watching. I'm really happy to be back. I don't know what my posting routine is going to be like. I am still doing a lot of marketing stuff for our business, and my fixer-upper is still very much a fixer-upper. But I'm gonna do my best, hopefully get a video up once a week. My goal would be twice a week. I just want to continue to say thank you for giving me this platform. I am very, very humbled and blessed to be able to talk to you guys and to have the conversations we have on Instagram and through messages. It does my soul a lot of good to know that sharing my story and my struggles help you all as well. Have a wonderful weekend. I look forward to seeing you next time.